Okay, so let's start the second part of this journey to Mars. So, is an extraterrestrial settlement feasible for humankind? This is going to be the part of where we discuss about possible colony in other places rather than Earth. So we have already an extraterrestrial colony that is in the International Space Station. We saw it before. We know that there are humans there. They can stay there for more than a year. You see here a beautiful astronaut playing with instruments on the space station. So the space station, that it takes 90 minutes to make a complete turn around the Earth, is about 400 kilometers above the surface. So 90 minutes is a very short amount of time. So every 90 minutes you have sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. Can you imagine? And they perform all sorts of activities, astronauts in there. So they do sports, they have to take sports. And this is because of the osteoporosis. We don't want the bones to get too thin. And then they also have all monitors. They get monitors for everything to make sure that they are healthy. And in addition to that, the space station is also a very good laboratory for testing new technologies for space, new technology for Earth, because you know gravity there is not as here. So we can remove gravity from the equations, and this is also good to understand certain things. So it's a very good laboratory to make technologies to study human health and to study life in space. But now we want to move to the next step, that is instead going to a different planet or a satellite. As you see, we have here the European Space Agency that wants to go to the moon. This is the moon, this is a picture of the moon, while NASA wants to go to Mars. So there are pros and cons in going in one of these two places. Now, if it would be up to you to decide, where would you go and why? I would like to just chat with your colleague, the one that is close to you, about where would you go, if to the moon or to Mars, and why would you go there? Start, guys. Interact. Have you make up your mind? I want to hear from you, so where would you go? Let's start from Brian and Nicholas. Where would you go?
We would go to Mars because we wanted to go to new places, and so we could have more places to go, and so we could say that humans have been to more places, and instead of going to the moon again.
Yeah. Okay, and what about Kyla and Jasmine?
Mars, because there's more possibilities for harboring life on Mars, and also there's already been lots of research.
So who wants to go to Mars? Which were the couples that decided Mars? And was anybody that picked up the moon? Nobody wants to go to the moon, apart from Chris. So who are the moon? Okay, can you tell me, David?
I want to start small and gather more samples and make some inferences.
So you want to start with something that is more nearby, closer by, where it's easier to get more information, more samples, to do some more tests before going to something more complicated as Mars. Does anybody else want to go to the moon apart David? We cannot send him alone, right? Rocky, okay, very good, Rocky.
Mars is too far away, and you have to like it's so far. We're broke enough as it is. We don't need to spend more money to go to Mars.
Well, money is not an issue, as you see.
It will be an issue soon enough.
No, money is not really an issue, because if you consider how money gets spent most of the time in very fancy things like jewelry, like cars, like whatever is this. At least here you want to discover something new. You might discover something new, right? We can get more scientific knowledge out of it. Some of the things are just to make our life more comfy, which is good. I mean, I like jewelries, although I do not have them yet. But
Yes.
anyway, let's move on to the topic. So, okay, most of you, they want to go to Mars. Well, still, the moon is very interesting, and I'm going to tell you why the European Space Agency want to go to the moon. It's true that we already been to the moon in 1969, and so it's already known, if you want, how to go to the moon. But this is also a very good laboratory because it's more nearby. You can go back and forth if things are not as expected. You can test most of your technologies. So do something that we are doing now with the space station, but do it on the moon. You can build up your villages and so on. This is the near side, the one facing the Earth, and this is the far side facing instead the outer space. They would like to build up the moon village in the side that is facing the outer space, and this because like these astronomers can be extremely happy because they can look at outside without having all the lights from Earth and all the interferences from Earth. There are already 2 people that are working on the project, Sir Norman Foster and Enrico Dini. What do you think that the background of these people is? What are they? Scientists, engineers, IT, chef? What are they? Huh? Plumber. We need a plumber also in the moon, I think. So what are they? Huh? Coordinators. No, they are something maybe unexpected because they are architects. Because we are building houses right here. We want to make a village on the moon. So these 2 people are architects. And indeed, if we want to build up our house, what we have is we are going to send here, you see, this is our spacecraft arriving in the moon surface, and it can be used to make as a pressurized module from the outside to the inside. Then you have an inflatable scaffolding membrane. You just inflate that, and this becomes your little house. Now, this little house, it looks like it's not so safe. We know that the moon is full of craters. There are meteorites because there is not the atmosphere. So meteorites arrive all over the time, every time. So we need to make this space a bit more safer. So what we do is to copy essentially from nature. So how the wisp is making his nest using the saliva, using the material that it finds around, and it generates a wire, and with this wire, it makes up his nest. So we have to do something similar using robots instead of the wisp. So we send up robots so that they can build up this type of things. And indeed, this technology is essentially the technology at the base of the 3D printer, right? Here we have the biggest 3D printer existing, that it takes a wire and essentially build up structures. And you see example here of structures. In the case of the moon, we are going to send robots that do exactly this job, using material that is on Mars, on the moon, or in Mars if we send them to Mars. Now, as you see from these structures are not completely filled. And they look like honeycomb structures. Indeed, here you see that we are going to cover up our membrane, inflatable membrane with an honeycomb structures, and then there are going to be other robots to put some additional material in the top of it to make the roof very stable. Using, again, the honeycomb structure is built with these 3D printing robots. Now, why do we want to use honeycomb structure? This because if you look at, again, at nature, you see that, do you know what is this one? Any guess? what is extremely solid, very solid and powerful, and very light at the same time. Because it's this what we want to have. We want to have something light because it's on the top of a membrane, inflatable membrane, so we don't want to make it collapse. But we want it also very strong. This is a bone. So if you look at your microscope at your bones, they are done this way. They are light, but they are very resistant. They bring you around, right? And this type of technologies is used also, as you see, in everyday life. Here is a ski boot. So for when you have to use something light because you are doing sport and you don't want to carry heavy boots, but they also need to protect because it's a quite dangerous sport. So we do the same thing. That's why the honeycomb, you just use the minimal that is necessary there to make it light. So you build up this honeycomb structure, then you have additional robots bringing up some materials. You send robots over the robots, you have lots of them, you use your module or to go to the external part or to combine from one membrane to another one so that you can build up your village. And this is how it looks from the inside, where inside you can do lots of activities like you do here in your house and watch the earth outside and doing some job. Okay, so this will be the moon village.